Yeah, I think the list of kind of risks is getting diminished, and at the same time, the amount of demand, like the amount of institutional money just sitting on the sidelines waiting for this next bill to land, these are the big institutions I talk to. They're holding 1% of the portfolio in Bitcoin, and I'm like, what would it be to 5 to 10? And they say regulatory clarity. That's it. So I think we'll continue to see huge inflows of capital.
Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong says just a little bit of regulatory clarity is all we need to reach $1 million Bitcoin. All this while Coinbase itself calls for a full-scale alt season. China weighs a yuan-backed stablecoin for the first time in history. Trump turns up the heat on Fed Governor Lisa Cook, and Bitcoin tumbles back into the range that it's been in for the last few months, leading many to wonder, was that the top, or do we have a whole lot more ahead? And let me tell you this very clearly. I'm loading up on this dip more aggressively than any time in the past because it's very clear to me that what we're seeing ahead of us is so incredibly big that it's worth the risk. It's worth the gamble here in crypto land. And mind you, we are always gambling for our future here in crypto, where if we're right, we make insane upside, and if we're wrong, we get completely obliterated. This is the extreme Russian roulette of finance, crypto, the world in which we love, and we're finally watching the bankers buy our beloved bags. And I believe the next part of this bull run sends us to Valhalla, the hallowed Q4 of the year after the halving. The most profitable time repeatedly in the entirety of crypto is upon us, and you're seeing the prototypical dip before the Q4 magic takes off. So strap in because we have an absolute banger. If you're excited for this one, make sure to smash that like button. And here's a picture of a beautiful butterfly to show you that I'm very thankful. Also, we're coming into the most intense and also time-sensitive part of the bull run, so I highly encourage you to subscribe and put that bell notification on, because as the extremity of this market continues, these videos will start to become extremely time-sensitive, and seeing them before hundreds of thousands of other people will give you the edge you need to stay ahead in this market. We're also expanding the team here at Elio Trades. I'm very excited about that, bringing on new researchers because there is so much to cover, and we are just getting started with the best part of crypto. So with that said, let's dive in because today's episode is going to be a banger. First and foremost, let's talk about price, because as you can see, Bitcoin went all the way up here to about 124,000, and then it came all the way back into this kind of diagonal and sort of downward range that we had been in really since the beginning of July. Now, you could see this as a deviation. I personally see this as just a reaccumulation before pushing higher, but other people have pointed out that this is actually a pretty big and meaningful pattern on the weekly. So as you can see here, this is the weekly chart, and as you can see here, we put in this high around 123,000. And you can see that we broke it right here, where we actually went higher on the weekly chart, and we broke out from this 123K level. You can see it above that blue line. But then we actually failed, and we came back down. And they call this a swing failure pattern, meaning that we were going to swing up, and then we failed. Now, the swing failures can be significant. As you can see here, Maine says a bearish swing failure pattern has only happened 13 of 15 times. There's been a huge reaction on the weekly. And he said it's only happened 15 times in the last 5 years. As you can see here in 2021, we swing failed in May, and then we came all the way down. We did it again at the bottom, and then we, swing succeeded, I guess, came all the way up, happened again. You can see that this was the ultimate top in 2021. And then it's happened a few times along the run up here, actually both times on these sideways ranges where we've gotten a poke up and then we collapse. Poke up above, and then we collapse. So this can happen here. And the question is, does this mean that we're going to come all the way down? Both of the times these happened earlier in 2024, at the beginning of 2024, and then at the end of 2024, these were huge opportunities to then buy the lows, and they did not represent the end of the cycle. So no, I don't think this is the end of the cycle. This is an amazing time to stock up. But again, it's important to realize that these are significant technical things. But in my head, we're just looking at the same thing that we've been looking at, which is you have a high and a low. And if we break down here, that would probably be, as we're getting into like the 100,000 to 110,000, that would be when everyone freaks out and probably the amazing time to buy and load up for the next run. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to stop here. We had a nice little bounce off the lows twice now. If you can see, this is actually higher. So you could say this is a higher high on the recovery. I don't know. But my point is right now, people are freaking out over the technicals, which is creating the opportunity in the market that I'm going to be using to stack up alts. And I'm not expecting a short resolution. I'm expecting for this to send itself upwards somewhere at the end of September or maybe even October. And that's when we're going to get the real fireworks that are going to end this bull run. Now, if it happens sooner, of course, the September weakness seems to have come early in August. So maybe the October surprise will happen in September. Again, who cares? The point is that we're going to stay invested. We're going to stay long until we are given a real reason that this bull run is over. And this is not it. I love the take by Capital Flows here. I'd rather buy the dip all the way up and get stopped out at the end of the bull market than be sitting in cash with fear of every all-time high being the cycle top. And he has here the meme of the Wojak saying, hey, we should short stocks, and the Pepe saying, you're fired. Essentially, this is not the time to be bearish. Everything on the macro backdrop signals that assets should continue higher, and especially if we're able to get some Fed rate cuts, which I believe are coming at some point, whether it's this month, next month. We know that a monstrous amount of Fed rate cuts are coming to a US capital market near you. So as Pigeon says, I'm fully allocated, call options loaded, max convexity going into euphoria. Now, what I wanted to point out here is that Coinbase actually put out this research piece where they called for a full-blown altcoin season. They said altcoin season cometh. Cometh, baby, cometh. They say, in summary, we think current market conditions now suggest a potential shift to a full-scale altcoin season. Many have debated whether Fed rate cuts in September could represent a local top for crypto markets. We don't think so. With significant retail capital sitting on the sidelines in money markets, over $7 trillion, and other places, we think Fed easing could unlock greater capital retail participation in the medium term. They were saying it's good to focus on ETH, but there are other areas like Arbitrum, ENA, Lido, OP, all are essentially ETH betas. Now, I actually am going to talk about some ETH betas today, but this is the key. Right now, we're finally seeing the rotation to ETH. I also don't think this is the cycle top, but here is my prediction for what comes next. I think we are going to have another big move by BTC. I think it's going to be something pretty significant, and it'll probably get us up to about the 150K range. Anything from, 135 to me to 160, this is all in range. I don't know if this is exactly the numbers, but anyway, I'm looking for another leg up, and then I'm looking for alts to really take over. And if that happens, that to me would signal that we're probably in some of the last phases of the bull run, and I'll be looking to start taking profits aggressively. So I'm positioning now to start selling then. Again, as many of you know, I've been positioned for like 2 years, 3 years, but that's not the point. So the big question is this Fed rate cut going to come in September? Because there's potentially doubts about this, as we just heard some whispers from the Fed officials saying several have noted concerns about elevated asset valuations, meaning that they might not see this moment as one in which they need to cut rates. In fact, they might see some risks of inflation, or asset inflation in this case, as a higher risk than actually the recession. So this is something that actually Capital Flows has been talking about. So I encourage you to check out their content. But meanwhile, you have big banks calling for as many as 4 rate cuts before the end of 2025, which would bring the benchmark down to about 3.25 to 3.5%, a massive cut here, essentially a full percentage point of interest rates cut, which would drive money out of bonds, or at least short-term bonds, and into assets like stocks and crypto. Now, the game has actually gotten even more crazy, because what we've seen here is that Trump is stepping up the pressure on the Fed, and in this case, they are going after someone named Lisa Cook. Now, apparently for tax purposes or for tax benefits, Lisa Cook in 2021 claimed 2 different rental properties or properties as her primary residence, and these were done just 2 weeks apart, and now people are wondering whether or not she essentially committed some fraud, and essentially they're going after Lisa because she's one more vote that they can use to push the Federal Reserve towards rate cuts. Now, just so you know, the way this works is that last time they debated, there was a 9-2 vote, and there is a very rare and very tiny history of any dissenting votes in the Federal Reserve on interest rates. So this was already historic that 2 Fed governors stepped up and said, hey, we actually think there should be rate cuts here, and we disagree. So the 9-2 is actually significant that not all 11 voted together. Now, if Lisa Cook is able to be ousted by Trump through this action of accusing her of fraud, and that this actually turns out to get her to step aside, they will put someone in that is most likely going to have the cut to zero mentality. So it would become an 8-3 instead of a 9-2. Again, this isn't to show that this is a single fix, but it just shows you that the Trump administration is looking to put the max amount of pressure to get the rate cuts that they want. So effectively, the Trump administration is stepping up their pressure and obviously pursuing other paths here to eventually get the rate cuts. The point is that they're coming. They're either coming today or they're coming as soon as the Fed chair is replaced in May of 2026. That is the ultimate final moment that we look to for rate cuts. But chances are there would be soft amounts of cuts along the way, as at a certain level, I guess it would just be seen as being far too stubborn by Jerome Powell. I just don't see that as likely. But who knows? Worst case, it's a few months away in May. Best case, it's coming sooner and giving us this fuel for the last leg of the bull run. But I do want to put out some, I guess, ideas here, which is what we've seen out of Bitcoin since the bottom in really 2022. And let me go ahead and switch to a weekly chart here. What we've seen out of Bitcoin since the bottom in 2022 is this sort of stair-steppy behavior, where essentially there will be these dynamic moments where Bitcoin will, break out, and then we'll see this consolidation back to, some midpoint of the breakout. Then we'll see a breakout. Then you'll see the consolidation back to, essentially the original breakout. And we saw it happen again and come all the way down. And it happened once again to the breakout level. So we've seen this sort of stair-step consolidation thing out of Bitcoin pretty much nonstop for the last several years. And the question remains, are we going to get this sort of euphoric pump up here into the crazy zone and then this crazy alt season? Or are we going to see maybe just more of the same? Are we just going to see another stair step and then another stair step and then another stair step? Is that going to be the way that this continues well into 2026? Because if so, then we might see the interest rate cuts. If they don't come this year, maybe that just extends the cycle deeply into 2026, where all of a sudden risk starts rushing into the markets and it just takes a lot longer. That would be the super cycle. To me, I'm kind of rooting for that. As much as I want the instant gratification of being rich overnight, I'm also very aware that the longer this goes, the higher the price targets and the more money we'll all make, even if it's a little agonizing. So I do believe that this is the chance to load up before the next leg, but the next leg might also have another chance to load after that, and so on. And as those interest rates get cut, the chances of things flowing more and more and more into altcoins is there. And so I think that that would be the moment we'd see extreme risk, AI, gaming, NFTs, all those crazy narratives. But for now, I want to focus on the narratives that are pumping today, that are getting the institutional backing and the excitement today, because those are the ones that are going to continue to accelerate in this next phase in the immediate term. And as that behavior starts to move out the risk curve, we'll make you aware of it. But for now, I'm mostly just positioned in those long tiers, so those are long risk curve alts. And I'm really hyper concentrated in ETH and ETH betas, majors, and yield. Let me go through these because this is the major categories that I think are the places to focus on for the next short while in crypto. Now, before we get into it, I wanted to shout out our partner of the channel, Blowfin. Now, if you are a trader, to me, Blowfin is one of the absolute best places to trade. They have no KYC if you're American, very reputable, and I'm actually going to be sweetening the deal. And we're going to be, over the next several months, airdropping 100,000 super tokens to people who sign up and trade on my link. There's also an amazing sign up and deposit bonus that they have of up to $100,000. And the exchange is just amazing. It's great to use. But if you want to be eligible, you can trade as you normally do. And you can also be eligible to receive some massive and sweet super airdrops. I'm going to be giving out $1,000 in super to several users who sign up and actively trade on this link. So if you want to be eligible, hop in. Of course, at the end of this term, I'm also going to be forming a little group here of the best traders who are using my link, and we can share trade ideas and help navigate the market in a very small and elite private chat. Again, not paid. I'm just trying to link up with the best and smartest traders in my community. That being said, check out the promotion. And next week, we're going to check back to see who's joined under this link, and you could earn yourself a sweet super airdrop. Once again, shout out to Blowfin for partnering with the channel. First of all, it's just important to realize that we've never seen anything like the level at which Tom Lee is shilling ETH. He's literally shilling specific inflection points and price targets, essentially saying more or less that he's buying each and every one of these. And we know that he is loading up a $20 billion mega cannon to buy ETH for BMNR. And like I said, we've been following the BMNR trade, and I said, hey, look, this trade has gone absolutely bananas since we loaded in at 32 bucks. We covered it down here. And I said, hey, look, this thing is probably going to go crazy. And it did, locally topping out at over 70. And now it's come down into the 40s. So is this probably a good range here to be picking up some BMNR? I actually like the risk reward here as it's, touching this money noodle. You can see it's bouncing off of the money noodle here on the daily. I'd imagine that BMNR is going to be the best ETH beta because effectively this is the version of altcoins on the stock market. These are these treasury co-plays. So you have essentially the extreme lendiness of altcoins and they're related to ETH. So as ETH pumps, I think you're going to see BMNR take on that sort of main ETH beta, right? So I'm looking to add to ETH. I'm also looking to add to BMNR. As you can see, ETH down here at the 4,000 range. Again, you can see it played perfectly off this prior all-time high breakout. But to me, the real thing is you should have been stacking up ETH all the way through here, like we told you to. If you're late, I think you add a little bit of ETH, but you also have a chance to sort of get back into BMNR in value ranges. Again, this is much higher risk than ETH, but I just think it's going to work well. And this this is how the stock market has been processing things. So this is a unique opportunity to participate in the ETH adoption by Wall Street. And it's really, really amazing. In other news, you can see Coinbase is really respecting this sort of broadening channel. And in my opinion, if it comes down here to this, sub $300 range, it's a good deal. I don't know if it will, but you can see that it completely has retraced a lot of this, and coin is coming back into what I can say is probably good value zones. Again, this is what I consider a major. So now let's get to the real alpha. Smash that like button if you want to know the coins that we're buying, because just a few weeks ago, we told you all to buy Aerodrome. We told you to buy Aerodrome back when it was in this 70-cent range. It's fully doubled, more than a 2x in just a few days here. We also told you to get involved in Uniswap. Back here in this green box, you can see we have the green box here. It's up, decently from there. It did hit over 12 bucks here. Again, all these DeFi protocols, you can see they're working their way up. And we've been banging the drum about this for the last few months. Syrup, one that we like on this channel, you can see it's really respecting this 40 cents or so range. But you can see it's probably in a decent value zone here. And, if it breaks under, scooping up some cheap syrup, given that it's a top DeFi protocol, probably not a bad idea. You see Aave just continuing to push its way up here in little zigs and zags, albeit, but it's doing great. So pretty much we nailed this concept that these regulations would put DeFi and Ethereum into the center focus, along with stablecoins, of course. We talked about Athena, went absolutely crazy. And now I'm going to be telling you that I think it's time to be focusing on ETH and ETH betas, as well as majors. So what are the ETH betas? Well, like I said, the number one that I'm looking at is definitely BMNR. I showed you guys Coinbase here. I think Coinbase is definitely entering into a value zone just for all of crypto. Coinbase, it had this extreme run from about 235 bucks all the way up to 448. Actually, this move started at 144. So it pretty much tripled, 300%. Now it's come all the way back down to about the mid twos. I mean, if it comes under 300, that's a huge discount on one of the most important companies in the world for crypto. So I'm big on coin, getting into some discount coin at these levels. But like I said, the BMNR play is really interesting for an ETH beta. It's kind of behaving like the meme coins used to, the Pepes, the Mogs, which aren't really moving that hard as ETH moves up. That's been very surprising. And it actually changes the overall picture when it comes to, do memes actually represent the upside of a chain, or is it now these treasury companies? And I think that the market's telling you it's these treasury companies that are like the altcoins that get the beta play exposure to the upside, and they will also function that way to the downside. Remember, ETH is barely off the highs and BMNR is down 30%. Mind you, it doubled as ETH went up 30%, right? So you're getting these extremes at 135% off the lows, 30% off the highs. This thing is pumping and dumping like mad. But anyway, I believe that this is the, ETH beta that you want to look at. But it's not the only thing, because the truth is that we're seeing explosive growth in the majors. And once these majors really pick up into the right, like BNB, you're talking about a $122 billion asset making new highs, one of the best charts in all of crypto. And so it shows you maybe BNB is the place you want to be looking. Maybe you want to look on BNB chain as this explodes to new highs. But to me, you have a chance right now to ride major assets in the space. And those major assets are things like Chainlink. If my computer will load here, there are things like Chainlink, which has been absolutely crushing it. I mean, look at, obviously, it's up 11% on the day. The last week, it's just been explosive from, what is this? 15 bucks about in the beginning of August, all the way up to 26 bucks. This is the first time we've seen Chainlink really do this since the last run. Mind you, it peaked at, 50 bucks last time. This thing might go up to a few $100 this cycle. I mean, Chainlink is core to the real world asset stuff. It's core to a lot of this stuff. And you see Sergey out there in Washington rubbing elbows with the president. You also have Toncoin. I think Toncoin is one of the better plays in the market because they now have this treasury co-vehicle. I'm not sure if there's something that might work against Ton of being an offshore organization, but to me, Ton is definitely, you can see it's settled all the way back to its sort of pre-2024 pump. This is almost 2023 levels. Pretty much. You have $3.28 Ton. This is wildly undervalued in my opinion. And so Ton being the 21st biggest blockchain, I think this is a value spot. As I've been saying for like what feels like forever, Avalanche is in deep value territory. I think this thing hits triple digits again. That's a 4x from here. I think that Cardano is in pretty good value territory. You can see that it wants to get back over that dollar, head back to its prior highs of, I think, what was this, $3 or so. And then you also have Solana, of course, which is still trudging up. And we all know Solana is going to still be one of the main stories of the bull run. So these are all your majors. They're doing well. And in my opinion, they're in great value zones. I don't think you want to be too cute in this section of the bull run. You don't need to go too far out the risk curve. Focus on the big assets that will really need to reprice first before you get these altcoin rotations. You'll need to see Bitcoin. You'll need to see Ethereum. Now you're seeing Ethereum. You'll need to see the majors. They're next up in line after Ethereum makes its big move. I'm still heavily concentrated in Ethereum, but I'm looking to pick up positions in these majors as they start to edge their way up. Also with their own treasury co's. BNB has a treasury co. Avalanche has a treasury co. They're all going to have treasury co's. Ton has a treasury co. So that's the formula we're looking at right now. You want to be in the underlyings. You want to potentially be in the treasury co's, though they're all different and quite a bit more risky. I think that they will all do well, and my sort of particular approach is just to buy the major alts as they're getting ready to lift off. Now, that being said, the last section here is yield. Now, one of the things that I've actually become uniquely aware of is the emotions of trading, even for good traders, are really, really hard. And I've been thinking a lot in a sort of ever more difficult crypto ecosystem, how can I present crypto opportunities to the audience that avoid this trap? So what you see here is a chart of the South Sea stock in the 1700s, and this is Isaac Newton, one of the smartest guys in history, still buys the top and gets rug pulled. And if we click in on this, what you'll see here is that Newton invests a bit at the beginning of the bull run for the South Sea stock. And then he invests, or he exited happy after the next move up. Then all of Newton's friends start getting rich on this parabolic rise. Then he re-enters near the top, and a few years later, he exits at the bottom completely broke. And this is the story of most crypto investors, is maybe you make a bit of money, but then you come back in size, you get greedy, the emotions play with you, and even the smartest guy in the world gets completely destroyed. And he said, upon reflection of his financial misadventure, ruefully remarked, "I can calculate the movements of the stars, but not the madness of men." And this is a good example of why it's very difficult to trade. And for that reason, we're going to be talking about on-chain yield, because a lot of people have no idea, no understanding of what's been built here with my newest project, Black Hole. Yes, this is about Black Hole. And a lot of people see Black as a speculative asset, when in reality, in my opinion, it is a call option. It is a way to lock in a piece of the on-chain ecosystem and own a piece of a real on-chain business, and that business is swapping tokens. And so I'm going to be doing a segment right now where I show myself buying some Black, burning that Black, voting, and actually earning rewards from Black Hole, so that you understand this is what the token does. This is how I should view the token. And this is what buying some of this token and using it looks like. So here we are on Black Hole. And as you can see, the votes are being processed and they should be ready here in the next minute or so. So if we go to our portfolio tab and we refresh, okay, and the rewards just came in. So if we claim all, what we'll see here is we have a total of $227 in rewards. So we go ahead and sign, and there you go. So if we do a little math here, what you saw is that we put in $10,000. And if we divide that here by $227, which is what we just got back, and this is what we're getting paid per week, then it takes us 44 weeks to get repaid, which is way less than a year. Where this gets crazy is that Black Hole has just released the Escape Velocity rebate program, where essentially if you burn tokens, they're going to be bonusing those tokens with more VE Black. Essentially, you're going to get more for your burn. And there's actually a dashboard to track this. So there's 15 days left and 6 million V Black will go out. So this will get updated as more and more people burn tokens. But as you can see, people are getting a bonus of about 110%. So that's over 2x what they burned, meaning that your 40 weeks would actually be 20 weeks or less. But the truth is that this will probably normalize down. If other protocols are a good guide, then this might come down to 30 to 50%. But say this comes down to 30 to 50%, well, this would be times 0.6, just to give you an example. So that would be a 40% at middle grade. So this could come down to maybe 26 weeks, or maybe if it was 0.67, or if it was just 33% or whatever, that would be 30 weeks. But essentially 30 weeks is really no time at all. That's only half a year. And then you've gotten completely paid back on your initial investment, and everything from that point on is passive income. So essentially you're making more than 100% per year yield. And I know what you're thinking, is that realistic? Is that sustainable? And the answer is actually yes. If you see here on Avalanche, despite the drop in token value, what you see is that revenue of all applications on Avalanche, if you see revenue 24 hours, Black Hole is the number one. It's bigger than every other protocol on Avalanche combined. And if you go to all of DeFi Llama, what you'll see is that the holders revenue 24 hours, meaning the amount of revenue that gets paid back to holders across all DeFi, all chains, Blackhole is actually in the top 10 here. And the king, the original V33 DEX that proved this model, is Aerodrome here in the number 4 spot. And as you can see, Aerodrome, if you look at holder revenue, and this is through good times and bad times, has ebbed and flowed, but it's consistently been pretty productive. And as you can see, it exploded here as base chain exploded and then it contracted. So the same will be true here for Blackhole, which it will do very well if Avalanche expands, and it will not do as well if Avalanche contracts. It's just normal. So all things said and done here, if this ends up being the case that about 30 weeks to make your money back, and that assumes that revenues are consistent and then the token price that I bought in is consistent. Again, if token price goes up, this will take longer. If token price goes down, this is even shorter. And at a certain point, it's just free money. So people will jump in and there will be an equilibrium price here where the market says, okay, we don't want to let this go any lower because this is just too juicy. But the key thing to remember is if alt season kicks in and Avalanche explodes, then revenues and holder revenues to people who have burned their black tokens will go up dramatically. And if revenues go up 5 or 10x, then your 9-month payback might actually be 1 month of payback. Conversely, if they go down, they go down. Though to be honest, I mean, look, Avalanche is still kind of at the lows here. This isn't any kind of excitement. It's much more likely, I think, for Avalanche to experience upside than a significant downturn. You can see it's at range lows that it's been at throughout the entire bear market pretty much. Now, what I'm actually going to do here is swap everything I have into black. So I'm actually just going to buy myself more black and burn it. And that way you can see that actually by looping it like this and by compounding, as they say, all of your tokens into black, you can even speed up the pace of repayment because you're going to be increasing your yield week over week. As you can see, some of these rewards came in wrapped ETH, this type of stuff. So there is always going to be random stuff where maybe you decide you want to leave it in wrapped ETH. I'm personally just going to show you how to compound everything back to black. So now we've taken home in just this 1 week, another 739.42 black, which I will then use to increase my locks. And this right now is paused up until I think the next few minutes here. And once this unlocks, I'm going to increase my lock and the 739 black will get a 10% boost. So it will become over 800 black that I can then increase this NFT. I'll increase this from 35,500 to 36,300 voting power. So 813 black is what I will end up with in more voting power. Now check it out. Here's what I got effectively back in yield. As I got in 1 week, 2.29% yield, right? And I multiplied my stack by 1.02. So if I take this number, right, and I figure out how many times it takes me to get to 2, it's a little easier just to use AI to do these calculations. I went and explained sort of the deal here. I plugged in the missing value of how much black is worth right now. And it went ahead and said that if you compound your black tokens into VBlack with the rebates and the current yield, you're looking at 22 weeks or 5 months to make your entire yield back and be in profit. I'm not going to lie to you. Of course, there's risk. There's risk that the market goes down and that these revenues go down. There's also the chance, and I think an even better chance, I'm certainly betting on this, that the market goes up and these go way, way faster. Again, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not trying to buy too much of the VBlack off the market because I'm really addicted to this yield. I want to get as much of the protocol as I can, but I want the community to enjoy this and get the opportunity to do this. And because every dollar that goes into the rebate program effectively dilutes other dollars that go in, I don't want to take any value off the table for community. So this is the way it works. You're looking at creating a passive income stream. You're looking at how long it takes you to make it back to break even. And at current rates, it's about 9 or 10 months with no compounding. And if you do compound, it's looking more like 5 months, which to me is absolutely insane. And it makes it one of the best and juiciest yield products in the entire crypto space, probably in the world. Again, I'm really excited to see this product grow, but I wanted to make this video because I don't think anyone truly understands how black works, converted into VBlack, and how it earns you yield with the voting and the distribution. Remember, once you burn your black tokens, you are no longer diluted by new emissions. So you will always maintain that same percent of the total rewards and votes that come out of the protocol. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this, learning about how to vote and earn rewards from Blackhole. I truly think this is one of the most juicy and honestly downright insane opportunities staring you right in the eyes in the market. And I sincerely hope a lot of community learn about this and can benefit from it, because the benefit of this is you no longer need to try to time the market. You will be making less money in the slow times and more money in the fast times, but you no longer need to constantly hit sell when the market's up, time the market, or play with the emotions. You'll just make more money in the good times and you'll make less money in the bad times, but you'll still have dry powder coming in. I think it's amazing, and I think people spend their whole lives trying to set up passive revenue, and here's the opportunity, I think the holy grail of crypto, to own a piece of the best business in crypto, which is the exchange business, meaning you're getting fees from the trading of tokens, and it's all made possible by Black Hole. And I hope you guys realize this project is just a month old. We have so much planned, and there is so much that I cannot even say at this moment, but I don't think I need to. The math is the math. So there you have it. This is my guide for how I'm going to crush the next phase and why I'm so bullish to buy any dips here along the way as we're coming into the seasonally most bullish time in crypto history, Q4 of the year after the halving. The truth is I could see this bull run going on much longer than Q4, and I'm not mad if it does. But I also believe that we are firmly in a bull market that will either last maybe to the end of this year, potentially till the middle of next year. And if we're crazy, maybe even into 2027, because if Wall Street keeps pouring money into crypto, there's no reason why it needs to have a blow off top. Maybe the mania phase happens when Bitcoin starts at 220,000 and goes up to 400,000. I have no idea. But the reality is right now, I'm still super bullish. I'm buying the dips, and I'm excited to explore the major assets which are getting their own Wall Street repricing, just the way Bitcoin has. And I believe this is a very special moment for crypto, despite the fact that all cryptos are risky, despite the fact that we know all crypto can and still very well might reprice downwards 50, 60, 80, sometimes 100%, all the way to zero. The reality is that it is a gamble that I believe is worth it. You need to be comfortable with your own risk because nothing in life is risk-free, and certainly not making 100% APR yield that comes with additional risk with things like Black Hole. But I believe that these systems can become sustainable. And if they are, I believe this is an incredible opportunity for this audience to add a passive income stream in crypto before the world truly understands just how important these mechanisms and systems and protocols are, and just before these get priced way higher. Because I don't think 100% APR for a sustainable system is going to last into the future. I think those deals will get snapped up. Anyways, if you enjoyed this, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe with the bell notification on, follow me on Twitter at LEO Trades, click on this video popping up right here, as I'm sure you're going to love it. See you soon.